Okay, good morning everybody. You're all very welcome. It's fantastic to see real people here in a room this morning. I'm not on mute, clearly, so I'm getting some attention. Minister McGrath, it's fantastic to have you with us here this morning. I suppose endorsing and supporting this event and supporting the Financial Services Forum as you've done for many, many years, and we very much appreciate you being here with us. It's a showcase for financial services in the Southwest, and I think the attendance here this morning is very much a representation of that, and thank you all for being here. We're also looking forward to later being joined by Minister of State Sean Fleming, who will close proceedings later on this morning. And Deirdre, all the way from New York, it's great to see you on this side of the pond, and we're delighted to have you with us this morning and look forward to your address a little bit later on as well. So as I was saying, it really is fantastic to be standing at a real podium, looking at real people, rather than whatever number of people on the screen, which we've been doing for the last 20 months or so, and surprisingly got very accustomed to, but it's certainly far better to be here looking down at all of you. And we're delighted to be able to do this today, but I suppose in doing it, we are conscious as well of the importance of compliance with all of the COVID guidelines, and you would have received instructions around that yesterday by email. So particularly in the context of networking, we had hoped to have a more, I suppose, engaged networking environment this morning, but in the context of the slightly changed environment over the last week or so in terms of COVID numbers, we have amended that. So we'll ask you to take every care. And a little bit of a reminder, right? So be respectful of social distancing, wear masks. If you're not sitting, you're wearing a mask. It's as simple as that. And when you go out later on for coffee, get your coffee back to your tables, please, and you can work from there. So it is really, really important that you do that. And we have the chamber team and hotel team here as well to ask any questions if you have any as we go along. The event is also being recorded, as you can see this morning, so we may use some of that for marketing content a little bit later on. And we also have some members of our own team and an external focus group looking at the event here this morning as well as a hybrid test as well. So you're all in a test environment here now this morning as well, just to add to the excitement of being in a room full of people. So just for me to close, to thank again the Minister, all of our speakers, our sponsors, and also particularly the organising group for today, chaired by Alan, who's done a super job in leading out on that, and also to thank the Chamber team, who were absolutely delighted to be back here late yesterday evening and early this morning ahead of a live event again. So I know everyone is thrilled with that. So thanks to everybody. Have a great event this morning, and I hand over now to Alan.
Thanks very much, Conor. Stole all my lines as usual. But anyway, to sort of this is obviously an event for the Southwest, and Owen is bound to go large on the Cork side of things. So for balance, I'm actually a Wexford man, but I'm married to a Kerry woman, and there are a number of Kerry speakers later on as well. So it is, as I say, totally for the Southwest. As Conor said, welcome to everybody. Delighted to see people here in person. As you know, Conor has mentioned that the working group, I think that put this together. It's not just myself, I chaired it, but help when Karen Conboy, KPMG, Dave Bennett from EY, Mark Hutchinson from UCC, Gerard Donovan from MTU, Ciara Concannon from Enterprise Ireland, and Aoife Guiney from IDA, are led and ably and most ably assisted by Catherine Fitzpatrick from the Chamber and the entire Chamber team. Particular thanks, as we said, to the partners and the sponsors. This is all coming from the Ireland for Finance Action Plan. It's number 43 within the action plan for those that are interested, and it's to showcase the Southwest as a place for financial services. And the title of the event is Growth and Opportunity. I think the testament to the number of people that are here in person today, the number of organisations that have grown over the last number of years. Announcing jobs left, right and centre, which is phenomenal to see in the Southwest, and it's really testament to the strength of the region. As Conor said, we're delighted to have the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, who needs absolutely no introduction as a local hero, and a huge supporter of the Investment Limited Partnership Act to push through. Like also to welcome those that have travelled from Dublin. Normally that would be the furthest, but we obviously have Deirdre from New York as well, so thank you. Particularly Pat Lardner, the CEO of Irish Funds, and Karen Cullen, the Head of International Financial Services Risk and Compliance Unit in the Department of Finance. I said I've mentioned Kerry already, so I'll mention it probably a few more times just to make sure the balance is there. I'll leave Owen go. As I say, I'm going to let Owen go large on the Cork because he undoubtedly will. But it's a phenomenal agenda. It's great to have you all here in person. And with no further ado, I shall introduce Owen. Owen Motherway, Country Head of the Asset Management Exchange, Chair of the Cork Chamber Financial Services Forum, who were tasked with putting this together, Council Member of Irish Funds, and the first one from outside the M50, and also a Board Member of Shine Ireland. So with no further ado, Owen, over to you.
Good morning. I have to say it's exhilarating to be in a room of people, and I see faces out there that I haven't literally not seen in person for nearly 2 years. And I saw 1 or 2 faces I've been running from for 2 years, so we'll see how that all plays out. I think this event is amazing, right? And it's been a long journey for all of the Southwest, not just Cork, in terms of how we have built out a footprint of financial services in the region. And when I look out here this morning, what I see is front office companies who traded their way through the pandemic and innovated into sustainable finance and ESG and didn't miss a heartbeat. I see middle office businesses in the region that went virtual into kitchens and bedrooms and didn't drop a trade and kept the industry going, and volumes actually went up. I see back office providers here today who not only went virtual themselves, but also onshored work from the likes of Poland, India, the Philippines as a temporary respite for those countries that were struggling at the start. So we actually took in work from other countries. I see a Docklands now in Cork that has completed buildings with Horgan's Quay and Penrose, and they're fantastic. I see a university that went virtual with its students and still kept courses going. During the pandemic, I saw a whole new university being created across the Southwest and its 6 campuses. So to create a university in the middle of a pandemic is an incredible achievement. I see the fintech and the regtech providers that are here, and a lot of them going through the RDI hub in Fexco and Killorglin, and how they helped give swift solutions to all of the regulatory things so that investors and pension scheme monies were protected. I see a room full of people here who say, bring it on. Yes, we had a pandemic, but we didn't drop a heartbeat, and we're only getting started. So I applaud all of you for what you've achieved during the recent 2 years, and I think you all should applaud each other. The region is quite significant, right? There are in excess of 40 companies in international financial services across the Cork and Kerry region. It has been some journey since we started this endeavour 13 or 14 years ago, when we had a handful of companies around the table, and a lot of the work that's gone in has been quite silent, but there's been tremendous loyalty and long service by many people involved in what we've achieved. We now have the full life cycle from front office to back office to reporting, all in a cluster within the region. We are absolutely Ireland's second financial services centre. It has taken time to get here. It has taken collaboration to get here. But it is the blueprint for whichever part of Ireland wants to step up to be the third financial services centre. It's been 10 years of growth. There's over 3,500 employees within the sector. The ICT sector is booming. We have information security, cyber security, courses being pumped out from all of the various universities. And I think if you look at the image that will be behind me shortly, it shows all of the companies and all of the businesses that are creating employment in the region. So this is a landmark event today, to have the department here, to have EI here, to have IDA here, to have international guests here, to have the universities here, and to have all of us here as competitors and as collaborators. So I wish everyone luck for the rest of the morning. I would really like to thank Alan, Karen, Dave and Catherine for putting on a brilliant event with such a calibre of panel and contribution. Enjoy the rest of the morning.
Okay, thank you, Owen. And moving things swiftly along. I forgot to mention at the start, I never actually said who I actually was. Alan Cuddihy, Audit Director of Financial Services in Grand Thornton, and we're sponsoring the event along with the other institutions. I now introduce Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, Michael McGrath, TD for Cork South Central, and as I said already, huge supporter of the Investment Limited Partnership Act, which got enacted last year for Irish funds, and has always been a massive supporter of the Chamber and the Chamber Financial Services Forum. So, Minister McGrath, if you come up to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, and good morning, everyone. And it is great to be here. Sure, it's a little different, but to be here in person and to meet people, some of whom we haven't met for quite a long time, is really great. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity of this being probably my first significant public event as Minister, even though we're in office for over 16 months. And I think it's a measure of just how extraordinary a period in the history of our country and indeed of our planet that this has been as a result of COVID. And I want to thank you, Alan, for all your work as Chair of the Working Group in pulling together this event today. And you really have organised a stellar lineup, and I'm not including myself in that description. I'm referring to all of the other fantastic speakers that you have, and well done. I know that it took an enormous amount of work, so I want to thank you and to Catherine Fitzpatrick of Cork Chamber, and of course Conor Healy for all of your support and involvement in making this event happen. But I do want to pay a particular thanks to Owen Motherway, whom we heard just a few moments ago, because during the long number of years that I was the finance spokesperson in opposition for Fianna Fáil, I had a lot of engagement with Owen in relation to the work of this forum, and I think it's fair to say that he has been a constant throughout the development of this forum over the last number of years, and really has been the driving force behind it, providing the vision and the determination, which in no small part has played a really significant role in getting us all to this point where we have such a strong cluster of international financial services in the Southwest. So, Owen, thank you for all of that and for your work on behalf of all of us. I'm sure you'd all like to... And I do want to echo the point that you made, Owen, about just how challenging a period it has been for everyone in this sector, and to commend you all for the way in which you have adapted. You've shown tremendous versatility and agility in getting on with things, but not just keeping the show on the road, but despite all of the adversity and the challenges that we have faced, you've managed to make an enormous amount of progress in the last year and a half or so. And we've seen some very significant and welcome investments and announcements in the Southwest region over that period of time, notwithstanding all of those difficulties. The Cork Financial Services Forum, as has been said, was established back in 2008 in what we can all remember was a really difficult time for the whole industry. But the success that you have achieved in the intervening period is testament to the tenacity and determination and dedication of members. And it is my belief that you have now set the template for the development of financial services across the regions. And I echo your call, Owen, for other regions to now put their hand up and to seek to replicate the very significant success that has been achieved here over that period of time. I know that you will be joined shortly by my colleague, the Minister of State, Sean Fleming, who of course in the Department of Finance has direct responsibility for financial services. I spoke to Sean during the week, and I know he is really looking forward to his visit and to speaking with all of you later on in the morning. And he is responsible, as you know, for the Ireland for Finance strategy, which is our whole of government programme for the development of the international financial services sector here in Ireland. And I do acknowledge as well, of course, Karen Cullen from the Department of Finance here this morning. And I certainly know that the teams here in the Southwest are more than willing and more than eager to support Sean and the whole team to enable and to maximise the horizontal pillar of regionalisation, which is such an important part of the strategy that we are pursuing as a government. International financial services is a really important pillar of the Irish economy, bringing tens of thousands of high-quality, well-paid jobs to our country. Despite the challenges presented by the pandemic, I am pleased by the growth of employment in the portfolio of IDA and Enterprise Ireland firms, and I acknowledge their support and their presence here this morning as well, that are at the core of the Ireland for Finance strategy. Employment in these firms is now at the highest level ever in the history of our country. And it is sometimes not acknowledged that many of these jobs are indeed dispersed throughout the regions of Ireland and not just clustered simply in Dublin. And it's great to see Pat Lardner here from Irish Funds as well, as a further demonstration of the continued support from Irish Funds for the regionalisation and the continued growth of the sector in this part of Ireland. And all of this is thanks in no small part to the strong performance of firms in Cork and of course Kerry, Alan, we certainly cannot forget Kerry and the southwest region generally, with many domestic firms and a cluster of around 40 international firms in the region. And the list that you put up there on the screen is hugely impressive. To see the list of firms who are investing in and demonstrating every day their confidence in doing business in this region, and we very much welcome that. The IFS sector now employs approximately 3,500 people in the southwest, and I very much welcome the recent announcements from Altridomus and Global Shares in Cork, plus the Fexco RDI hub in Kerry, as strong evidence of a continued positive momentum that we are seeing. And these are all part of the impressive breadth of sectors represented in the region, including fund administration, transfer agency, trustee services, asset management, fintech and regtech, to name just a few. The hard work of the members of the forum over the last number of years has opened up an even wider set of opportunities for international financial services in the region, and I do want to thank you all for your efforts in that regard. And this is a regional showcase. It is an important action, as Alan has said, under the Ireland for Finance Action Plan for 2021, building on resilience. And the agenda for today is a real example of the capability of the Southwest region in IFS and a demonstration of the energy and of the strength of the cluster that is here, that you're able to hold such an event with critical mass and such an impressive lineup. International financial services is, of course, a dynamic and a rapidly evolving industry. While it does, of course, provide high-quality employment, as we have noted, its importance, in fact, is far wider than that. And we are seeing a manifestation of that, of course, in Glasgow at the COP at the moment, helping us to address many of the major challenges in the world, most notably, of course, climate change and digital transition. And these developments have huge practical day-to-day impacts on the lives of our people. Under the 2021 Action Plan, Minister Fleming and his team have delivered important strategic responses that will guide how Ireland responds to these transitions. These include the recent publication of the Sustainable Finance Roadmap, launched during Climate Finance Week Ireland, and the creation at the Department of Finance of the FinTech Steering Group in March of this year. Yesterday was, of course, a very significant day in the life of our country when we as a government launched our Climate Action Plan that sets out our ambition and our plan to deliver carbon neutrality in Ireland by 2050 and to have 51% reduction in carbon emissions by the end of this decade. And I know that it will require an enormous amount of collaboration between the state, the universities, the third level sector, the business community, and I acknowledge that all of you are to the forefront, and indeed many of you are already leading from the front in the efforts that you are delivering to achieve that very ambitious goal. The new Sustainable Finance Roadmap shows how Ireland, the Ireland for Finance strategy, how those ambitious targets can be financed. The region had a strong voice in the development of the roadmap, and previously in 2019 the forum here ran the only Climate Finance Week event to be held outside Dublin. And I do believe that we can have confidence that the financing of the climate transition will take place in a way that is aligned with the work of the UN and the COP process currently underway in Glasgow. And as you know, the Taoiseach gave a commitment in his speech earlier this week that Ireland will play a leading role in relation to climate finance, and we will increase by more than double the amount that we're currently providing by way of climate finance under Ireland's overseas development aid contribution. At the same time, A digital transformation driven by access to new and disruptive technologies is changing how financial services are intermediated. The term fintech is widely used to describe this trend, and in response, the Department of Finance this year formed a new fintech steering group focused on a number of key things: coordination of the government policy positions for fintech, collaboration with the wider public sector, regulators and industry, contributing to the wider EU policy debate on digital finance, which is a really live issue at this time, and communicating with stakeholders on the full range of government supports for firms and updating them on regulatory developments. The changes that fintech is bringing will have important implications for the region, with companies like Apple and so many others here in the southwest well positioned to benefit from these opportunities. Further opportunities lie, of course, in the area of RegTech, which assists firms in adapting to the requirements of greater regulatory reporting in a manner that is cost-effective and also secure. And I am pleased to note that there are a number of important projects in this sphere in this region. The wider environment in which this sector operates is critical to its overall success. Financial services needs a sound regulatory and legislative framework. In that context, the Investment Limited Partnerships Amendment Act, which was guided through the Oireachtas by my colleague Minister Fleming, was an important action to modernise the structure in which investment funds operate, making provision for best practice in the area of transparency and anti-money laundering. In addition to this legislative framework, we're extremely well served in the region by a strong cluster of leading audit, accountancy, consulting and legal firms which underpin the robust operating environment in which you all operate. The recent pandemic has shown that our workforce is extremely adaptable and flexible in times of major change, and I'm confident that this will make our region even more attractive for further IFS investment in the years to come. And I think it is important to recognise the vital role of our third level institutions in preparing our students for this rapidly changing world. And I know that interface is such an important one for all of you in industry. And of course, one of the very first acts of this government was to establish a new government department of further and higher education. And it was a statement of intent from government, and it shows that we fully appreciate the crucial role of our third level institutions in attracting investment in sectors such as IFS. And I know all of you are in a battle for talent, and that is one of the real constraints and challenges that we face now across so many sectors, and having a third level sector in our country and in this region delivering high quality graduates with the skills that you need is so important for your future growth and development. Cork is home to a significant tech cluster and is also the HQ of Cyber Ireland, a national cyber security cluster. The recent attack on our health services serves to show the growing importance in this area as the digital transition accelerates. UCC and Munster Technological University have a combined total of over 40,000 students, with several thousand graduates each year in disciplines in business or finance. The Cork University Business School hosts several financial services research centres and projects, including the FinTech Next collaboration with Fexco in Kerry. UCC is also home to the Insight Centre for Data Analytics, which specialises in data analytics. These developments, along with the recently established Munster Technological University, will, I believe, play a major role in the economic development of the South and South West region. And it is particularly good news that the Munster Technological University will now be launching their Funds Academy, and I really welcome that as a most exciting initiative. And I want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of all those involved in making this progress a reality. The government will play its part, and this will be done very much in a spirit of cooperation with the industry, the education sector and the wider society. And over the course of implementing the National Development Plan, the government will be investing very significantly in the infrastructure in both UCC and the Munster Technological University. And on Monday next, Minister Harris and the Taoiseach will be doing the official launch at MTU, and Minister Harris and I will also visit UCC on Monday, again as a further demonstration of our commitment to both universities that we are now very privileged to have in our region. Just a few weeks ago here in Cork, we launched the €165 billion National Development Plan. It represents an enormous commitment of resources over the next 10 years to the strategic development of our country, and indeed a step change in how we plan for our future well-being. As a region, we will benefit from a number of major infrastructure investments which improve our attractiveness as an investment destination, including a number of key road projects, some of which are underway, the major Dunkettle interchange, the N22, Macroom-Ballyvorney bypass. We now have advanced works underway in respect of the M28, Cork to Ringaskiddy motorway. We are making progress in relation to the Cork Metropolitan Area Transport Strategy. We are looking forward to the reopening very shortly now of Cork Airport with a newly reconstructed runway. We're investing almost €200 million in a commuter rail plan for Cork, which is also benefiting from significant funding from the European Union. And of course, we're investing in our education infrastructure, in our arts and cultural centres, such as the Crawford Gallery, just to name a few, for example. In addition, Housing for All will, of course, represent a core priority for government, because I know having accommodation available for your staff is such an important part of the offering of this region, and the government is determined to deliver on the ambitions in Housing for All, to deliver high quality, social, affordable, cost rental and private housing over the years ahead. So in conclusion, Alan, I know that Minister Fleming will have much more to say later on about the strong collaboration between the Ireland for Finance team, how that can continue into the future, and indeed the development of the 2022 action plan. But it leaves me just to conclude by thanking all of you once again for the opportunity of saying a few words before you this morning. I want to reassure you of the government's continued commitment and support for the development of this sector over the years ahead. And I've been coming to many events in this room over the last decade or so, and to see how the backdrop has changed, I think it is a picture of how Cork is changing and how Cork will change over the next number of years. And we will see several hundreds of millions of euro invested by the government in urban regeneration along the docklands here over the years ahead. And I know that this holds the potential for the development of a very significant cluster of financial services firms investing in this city and indeed in this region over the years ahead. And I look forward to supporting you in your efforts to bring that about over the years ahead. So enjoy the rest of the morning, and thank you once again.
Thanks very much, Minister, and thank you for your continued and ongoing support of everything that we're trying to do in financial services in the Southwest. And just to shake things up a bit, we have a couple of videos for the morning. We're going to show the first of them now. It's a nice segue from the Minister's remarks in relation to talent and how we can source that talent, particularly from the two universities in the region. And also included in the video are some vox pops from employees within the financial services sector in the Southwest. So if we can roll it there, guys.
The Southwest region of Ireland has become an emerging centre for international financial services, both in traditional areas like fund administration, insurance, but also an emerging area like payments and fintech. We have the world's top global brands located here across technology, banking, life sciences. I think Ireland has demonstrated that over many decades, how companies have been able to come in here, get established, but also to be able to get the talent they need to make them successful. This region has attracted a lot of talent into the region. I think they're drawn by the fact that there's a lot of opportunities to develop careers in financial services, but there's also really good quality of life both in Cork and Kerry.
I'm a senior officer in depository with Ultradamus. Ultradamus has a lot of ambition and projects in the field of depository upcoming, so I definitely see my future career here.
My name is Shaurya, I come from India. The main thing I like about Ultradamus, of course, the career progression is very strong over here.
Citco is a hedge fund administration company. I work in the investor relations department. I'm from South Africa originally. I moved to Ireland about 3 years ago. We ended up settling down in Kerry. It's really the most beautiful place I find. I really do enjoy the culture of Citco itself. You know, it's really easy to fit in there.
I work at Clayton, which is part of Deutsche Börse Group. I contribute to the enhancement of IT support through applying my skills in artificial intelligence. I like working in Cork because people here are really nice, especially my company. Like, it's a really empowering environment, and in a few years I see myself working as an AI product manager, like where I can use artificial intelligence to improve just things in the corporate world and also in IT, especially IT support.
I studied in UCC here in Cork. I did a Master's in International Accounting Practice. It taught us the technical skills of accounting, and one of the modules as part of it was actually a work placement, which has led me to my current role here in Grand Thornton.
In the Southwest region, we have two universities here, University College Cork and Munster Technological University, which provides a really strong talent pipeline for international financial services companies.
UCC is an award-winning institution. In terms of scale, over 20,000 students enter the campus every year. UCC is ranked in the top 2% of universities in the world. UCC is at the forefront of research and development in fintech globally, with expertise in big data, artificial intelligence, and data analytics.
At MTU, we have one of the largest business schools in the country with over 3,500 students and 1,000 graduates annually. MTU is also the largest provider of professional accountancy programs in the region. Because of our close relationship with FS companies through work placements, industry visits, advisory boards, there's a real strong connection, and we're there to serve the region and industry needs.
What we're seeing is technology is disrupting every single industry, and international financial services is no different. And what's really helpful in Ireland is there's a really strong cluster of financial services companies, but also technology. And we're seeing a lot of collaboration taking place.
The cybersecurity industry in Cork is a really rich ecosystem, and other industry sectors have benefited from this ecosystem, such as the financial services sector.
Enterprise Ireland works with Irish-owned businesses in financial services and fintech at all stages of development, from startup right through to large companies. Homegrown companies like Fexco in Killorgan, Monix in Killarney, and Global Shares in Clonakilty are just some examples of true success stories.
Fexco was established in 1981, a multinational financial services company built on technology, innovation and entrepreneurship. For the past 40 years, Fexco has driven digital transformation from the Southwest across 29 countries.
It's all about talent. Companies are attracted to locations that can give them that talent that will help make their operations successful.
We've recruited many international staff. Two of the reasons that they want to come here, well, first of all, is the really high quality roles that they can secure here. But second is the quality of life in the region, which is second to none.
I find it a very dynamic and very young city with all the universities around. We have companies here which are expanding, which also shows that there are going to be a lot of opportunities to grow.
You can have a fantastic quality of life, both professionally and personally. It's a location that has something for everybody on the map.
It's such a beautiful place, and we are very, very lucky to be here, and we really enjoy it.
Okay, hopefully you'll all agree it's a very powerful video to showcase the talent that is available, and also, as we said, some vox pops from people currently working from a range of backgrounds across the industry. Okay, so time for our first panel. I shall do no more introduction other than to introduce Karen Conboy, who's an audit partner with KPMG locally and heads up their financial services practice in their office. And I'll let Karen introduce the rest of her panel. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome my panel here this morning. Seated to my left, Philip O'Reilly, Professor of Financial Technologies and Information Systems from Cubs UCC. Ruth McCarthy, CEO of Fexco Corporate Payments. Dr. Sean McSweeney, Head of the Department of Computer Science, Munster Technological University. And in a very late call-up, Owen was not intended to feature so prominently in all our sessions. Owen gets to say that he's been subbed in for Patrick Horgan at very late notice from Horizon 8. In the world we live in, unfortunately, Patrick had to self-isolate last night for potential COVID symptoms. So your new claim to fame, Owen, is you got off the subs bench for Patrick Horgan.
You can imagine the flutter when someone says, "Can you be the substitute for Patrick Horgan?" And you go, "I've been dreaming all these years." Yeah.
So there you have us. So diving straight in to the topic at hand, as the Minister has mentioned already, FinTech is at the heart of the innovation and technology pillar of the Ireland for Finance strategy. But FinTech is a very big universe. So to open this up, just useful to get a sense from each of you, what each of your organisations, how they fit into that FinTech landscape. Maybe starting with yourself, Phil.
Brilliant, thanks Karen. So good morning everyone. So I suppose maybe let me share with you some details of the work that we're doing in CUBS and in UCC. So first and foremost, we actually have the largest dedicated FinTech PhD qualified research team of any university, not only in Ireland, but actually in Europe. All PhD qualified, as Mark mentioned earlier, experts in teams such as big data, artificial intelligence, but also business models, user experience. So it's really when you bring all these strands together that you really create the magic. Beyond that as well, I suppose we would collaborate with world-leading partners. So the Minister mentioned earlier FinTech Next, which is, you know, an outcome of a long-standing relationship with FEXCO. And as part of that as well, we would have other global names really supporting the research which we do, including Microsoft and indeed Barclays Capital. We're very much focused on quality, both in terms of obviously the partner and the network that we actually operate in, but also in terms of an academic context. We work with experts from world-leading universities. So we would collaborate with experts from Oxford, from Cambridge, from UNSW in Australia, Vanderbilt in Miami. I'm fortunate to say that we're very much in demand, not only in Ireland, but actually internationally in terms of our expertise. So over the last number of years, our team would have made presentations to the board of the Federal Reserve in Washington. We would have done presentations to the Chief Digital Officer of the IMF. Most recently, at their request, we did a presentation to the Digital Innovation Team of Ford Motor Company US. So very much, even though we're based in Cork, we very much have a world-leading global ecosystem that we're delighted to operate in. And really going forward, our objective is to grow that ecosystem.
And Ruth, FinTech, FEXCO existed long before the phrase FinTech did.
Yeah, we like to say that we're Ireland's oldest FinTech because we were actually founded in 1981. And if we look back to the beginning of the history of FEXCO, it was such a huge event when we got one mainframe computer. You know, it was like world-changing. And it's come a long way since then. But generally speaking, a lot of our businesses are financial services enabled by technology, and a lot of the time collaborating with larger, more established institutions in delivering products. So we started doing bureau de change, just changing physical money. We moved on, we did VAT refund business, and then moved on to the world of cards, so that today we're the leading provider of dynamic currency conversion worldwide. And that means we have a global presence. In my business, we work in international payments, and it would have been the norm for us to offer everything remotely through technology. And I think everybody else in the industry is pretty much at that point now also. So that's kind of our evolution and kind of what we do. More recently, we would have been collaborating with the likes of Philip on the next generation of technology, the FinTech Next program. And then we've worked with MTU on the RDI Hub. So we've developed this new hub for collaboration and support of startups, very much with the understanding that we're part of an ecosystem now. And we're going to have to accelerate growth and change in our businesses, which is the norm. And that means more collaboration and close work with government institutions, education, and with startups themselves.
And Sean, MTU has a particular niche or specialisation in cyber, and the Minister mentioned earlier the cyber cluster that exists here and how you fit into that.
Yeah, so one of the core ethos or components of MTU is our integration with industry. So we work very closely with industry in a lot of fronts, on our research and on our education. And one of our niches is certainly cyber security, that this gives us a competitive advantage in the Southwest Corridor, in particular in FinTech. So MTU would have been one of the core drivers of Cyber Ireland, which is this national clustering framework that brings all of these cyber security companies together underneath one umbrella. We also have educational partnerships, in particular We have a HCI, HEA Pillar 3 funding initiative. That's an 8.2 million fund that's establishing national cyber security skills, and that's driven out by my colleague Professor O'Shea, who unfortunately can't be here. We have broad engagements across ICT as well, and these happen to feed into this cyber security capability that MTU feeds into the fintech sector. So in terms of establishing or giving competitive advantage locally, MTU is one of the elements that MTU can provide is certainly cyber security expertise, and it's worth noting that nationally we have 15,000 professionals working in this area. We currently have, in most recent estimates, a shortage of about 10,000, and the majority of the professionals working in this area are in the Southwest Corridor. So there's a large talent pool there to draw from.
And Owen, with your day hat on as country head of AMX, FinTech obviously embedded in everything you're doing in the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, I guess we're pitching ourselves as a FinTech, but also we use FinTechs and more the point the Minister made about RegTech, that's really important. And I think RegTech often gets lost under the banner of FinTech. And to me, FinTech is more about payments and transactions, and RegTech is the rest of it. So we use a patchwork quilt of different RegTechs to deliver our products or to service our clients. And when we package all of that together, we then are a FinTech or a RegTech ourselves in terms of how we deliver it. So within our business of traditional asset management, we have our own funds, we have a platform. We now also have restructured the firm into an ecosystem where we have a digital store where we're selling all of our products and other people's products and services mainly through that kind of digital store umbrella. So the way of everything has gone digital. I think one of the outcomes of the pandemic is everybody thinks digitally. I have a 16-year-old who buys all his clothes online from Boohoo Man. He's gone digital. Everything has gone digital, and it's been reinforced through the various months that have passed. So FinTech and RegTech are on the rise. If you look at a lot of the M&A activity, a lot of it is large firms buying out a digital enabler in one stream of topic or another. So I think that will continue, and it's always a battle to try and find the next best FinTech. And equally, I think as an industry, we all have an obligation where we have many FinTechs and RegTechs who have a great idea, have a great bit of technology, but don't necessarily know how to run their businesses yet. And that kind of mentorship and collaboration with the likes of the various colleges and the RDI Hub, I think, is really enabling for them to stay in business long enough to take off.
And Ruth, maybe that nicely links into one of the biggest transactions this year in this space would have been Taxmo.
Yeah. So Taxmo was a spin-off from Fexco. It was led by my brother, just to keep it in the family. But I suppose it supports this concept we have where we're building an ecosystem. All of the future growth and development isn't necessarily going to come from the existing names. And that was certainly the experience with Taxmo. So they spun out the company. They worked very hard for quite a period developing out their product, which is a solution for tax calculation at the point of sale, particularly for digital goods. And when they started, this was just a proposal that governments would begin to enforce digital taxation, VAT on digital goods according to the place where the customer is, which I don't know, it's not very significant to us as consumers, but it's extremely significant to the people selling us streaming services and online software and so on. They built it out and very much to the points made here, they were ahead of the well-known providers in the industry, and as a consequence they were successfully bought out by Vertex this year in a very significant transaction which is generating value both for the Taxmo team and for Vertex, in the sense that Vertex are investing in this capability. They can see that this is the future, and the Taxmo team are able to help them move forward.
And just building on that, the RDI Hub opened I think in January 2020, interesting timing. obviously Taxamo is the headline case study coming out of the building so far, but in the 2-year period, what have you learned, or what have you maybe been surprised by in terms of what the RDI Hub has given you, or given the ecosystem in Kerry?
Yeah, whenever we talk to people in the RDI Hub, they're all amazed that they've managed to just bootstrap and completely change how they work. You know, we opened in February and then they had to move online the following month. And they have successfully done that. They're doing workshops, they're interacting with the broader ecosystem, they're getting involved in initiatives, they're supporting businesses. I think the main message and main learning from the RDI Hub is that entrepreneurship did not stop with the pandemic. It just changed. And it still needed the same supports, perhaps not in a building with free coffee, but it needed supports in terms of somebody bringing people together, helping them make introductions, offering them mentorship, and giving them that umbrella of support and links back to third level. So it's been very positive.
And actually that links, when we were prepping for this session with Patrick before he had to step aside, Horizon 8 only established themselves in Cork in March 2019, and one of his interesting comments was one of the key success factors in landing here was around that collaboration, and as he said, the willingness of people in the sector and in the environment to share and to pay it forward, which I thought was an interesting observation from a new business, and that general openness and connectivity. And in terms of connectivity and talent, which we've seen from the video, and turning back to yourselves, Philip and Sean, how is the talent, the design of courses changed and evolved to keep pace with the solutions businesses need?
Yeah, so I think in terms of obviously UCC and Cubs in particular, obviously we're continuously evaluating our portfolio, our suite of products. There's always innovation in that. At the moment, I think we have over 15 postgraduate programs in specialized areas such as Masters in Cyber Risk, in Information Systems for Business Performance, in terms of Business Analytics, in terms of finance, some really outstanding programs there. Obviously, as part of UCC, the IMI also works very collaboratively with industry as well. And in the area of fintech, would have obviously worked with the likes of AIB and even the BPFI over the years in terms of putting together and developing tailored, customized programs. I think we are always keen to engage with industry. A great example of that was, we would have worked very collaboratively with State Street, specifically in terms of Masters by Research. They would have funded on an annual basis over 20 scholarships to the tune of €20,000 each. And we would have, in terms of the topics selected, worked collaboratively with them in terms of deciding on topics. So, areas such as blockchain, for example, we now not only have folks that graduated with MSCs, but also PhDs. And what's interesting about that is a lot of those folks have gone on to outstanding careers internationally, but actually all the PhDs that went through, they're all working in senior roles now in industry rather than in academia, all obviously supported by State Street. Beyond that as well, even within our modules, I know I teach an undergraduate module on global payments, and we would always have contributions from leaders globally. As recently as last week, we had senior executive president from the Fed in Boston come in and talk to our students virtually, which is wonderful, on the digital dollar, so and where the initiatives are in terms of that. So we're always looking to collaborate and create that leading edge experience for our students, be it in terms of programs, but be it in terms of placement, internships. So on an ongoing basis, we're continuously engaging with our ecosystem.
And Sean, you mentioned there the skills shortage in the cyber area. Where are you placing your bets and directing your efforts for the next wave of?
Okay, so we specifically looking at MTU, we've architected a number of programs that either have core cyber focus or have major elements of cybersecurity as part of it. Okay, so and Philip mentioned earlier on that's one of the areas that's important for the region. AI being another major area that's important for the region, or more correctly, ML, I suppose, in that. So for MTU, we are focusing in on synchronous and asynchronous delivery. We think is one of the core things that allows professionals to take programs as they need in upskilling. We've worked with a number of companies. One of the most recent interactions we would have been with MasterCard and building a specific tailored program for some of the requirements in their Irish site. Okay. We would also have continuing and strong collaborations with many of the IDA and EI companies in terms of improving both undergraduate and postgraduate offerings that we would have. And it's actually interesting that Philip had mentioned earlier on, we have a number of research collaborations that are ongoing, and there's a major change in the sector, in the thought process in the southwest region here in terms of what is a research active entity in this region, what is their value and what is their benefit. And this is one of the core things that we are currently working on is I suppose, changing the thought process that research is not disengaged from industry, and that's core here. And I believe that'll give us major capabilities in this region, in particular in fintech and cybersecurity.
I know, and as a buyer as well as a developer of fintech, what are you looking for from the educators to feed the next generation and the next line of products?
I think what we're looking for, we already get. I think it's even interesting listening to Sean and Phil, and even Phil's vernacular of I have a portfolio of offerings as opposed to a list of syllabi, right? So when I left college, if you did a master's or particularly if you did a PhD, you were academia bound. Now it's all about how are you enabling industry and how are you furthering entrepreneurship. So the pivot of the universities to build out courses in collaboration with industry has been fundamental. So a rich ground for us has always been the Masters in Asset Management course run through CUBS, and equally the number of cyber courses and information security courses run by MTU. All of those graduates are snapped up. There's more jobs than there are graduates. So and those have been built in collaboration with large multinational companies in partnership, as opposed to the old way of, I'm the educator, I'll tell you what you need to know. We're now asking what is it you need us to facilitate? And that really has been tremendous in terms of growing the sector. So what we want, I feel we actually already get.
And looking to the future, this, the story we have here is hugely credible. The names been checked from the podium here, are world leaders in their field. Where do we take the sector next, both in the region, nationally and internationally? Because I think it was Ruth who said to me, Ireland is a region in the global map, but we can serve the global market and we've huge credibility for having done that. So where to next, and what ambitions would you have either for your own businesses or for the region as a whole?
Yeah, I truly believe that Ireland can be the European leader in fintech within the next 10 years. Now, there's a number of factors within our control that will lead to that. Some other factors are just the environment that we've managed to create and arrive to today that are enabling us to grow. So to me, it's really just about continuing with what we currently have. As Owen mentioned, there's great collaboration with Third Level. We're creating the right talent. We have a good culture of entrepreneurship, and there's good collaboration within our industry. Looking back maybe 7 or 8 years ago even, when we look at how fintech used to be in Ireland, it was sparse. There weren't that many companies engaged in the area. It was poorly coordinated in the sense that we didn't have associations or organisations to bind us. And we were reactive in the sense that changes were occurring in regulation, perhaps in Europe or the United States, and also large corporations were driving the demands for change in our industry. Today, we have a large number of businesses operating in the industry. We have an ecosystem, we have business associations, we have government support, and we're part of the Ireland for Finance strategy, and we are driving change. So we're producing products and informing the market rather than waiting to hear what the market might need. So I'm very, very positive. I think it's just a case of us continuing the great work that we've done so far.
Owen?
I'd agree. I guess there's probably a few things we still need, right? So I think there's scope for regulatory sandboxes needs to come in that we don't have here that work in other jurisdictions. To foster the entrepreneurship, I think there needs to be a look at some of the taxation components for the owners to encourage them to go into those sectors. I think a lot of the tech will always happen, but it's also still fundamentally a people business, right? We can have all the technology in the world, but ultimately your customer usually wants that human experience, and your teams need it. And as we come out of the curve here on returning to work, I think a lot of that is also going to be interesting. The last thing I'd probably say is that lots of fintechs and regtechs are too good business mandates away from being stable and 2 failed RFPs away from going bust. So if as a business you're inviting an entrepreneurial fintech or regtech in to pitch and they're part of the book, I would encourage everyone to be upfront with them as to their chances so that they can decide whether to stay in the process or not. Because oftentimes they're there only to make up the numbers, they put all of the effort in, and that's one of their 2 strikes used. And I think if as a community and as a business industry, we want to continue to encourage people to innovate and be entrepreneurial and bring new solutions, we also have to be upfront with them as to where they are in the process so they don't fail.
Fair enough. Well, certainly there's no sign of failure in the ecosystem that's been developed here in FinTech, RegTech, the educational support services. I'd love to continue the conversation. Unfortunately, the only thing moving as fast as the FinTech agenda is this morning's agenda. So with that, I'm afraid I need to wrap things up with thanks to my panellists for their thoughts and contributions this morning.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Karen, and actually shaved a minute back off the agenda, so really appreciate that. We're now going to take a quick break for coffee. I think a slide will go up to say be back in 15. If I can implore you to try and be back in 10, that'd be fantastic, and we'll kick proceedings off again. Thank you very much. Moving swiftly along, another video now to show you from Munster Technological University to launch their Funds Academy, and specifically the Masters in Investment Fund Administration, which starts in January 2022. This is in partnership with Waterford Institute of Technology, State Street and Bank of New York Mellon, and full details can be found on fundsacademy.ie. So if you can roll it there, guys.
Munster Technological University is a multi-campus university with an impressive footprint across 6 campuses in the southwest region with over 18,000 students. MTU is a leading provider of professional accountancy education in Munster and prides itself on having a dynamic and extensive offering for the financial services industry. MTU works closely with industry partners to ensure that their learning and CPD needs are met and a graduate talent pipeline is fulfilled.
MTU have worked with Waterford Institute of Technology and industry leaders BNY Mellon and State Street International to deliver a dynamic and collaborative programme, a brand new part-time Masters in Investment Fund Administration. As the South of Ireland continues to thrive as a centre of excellence for financial services, we are strengthening our regional offering in funds education for over 60 financial services companies in the region.
We have a number of innovative modules, including fund governance and regulation, asset management techniques, management and leadership, and data analysis. To keep participants engaged, we will be using the latest in educational technology and cutting-edge financial analysis software. Over the life of the programme, we will continue to integrate key areas of development relevant to industry, as well as the central bank's regulatory focus.
As the programme will be delivered on a blended basis, using both a mixture of remote lectures and face-to-face lectures, we anticipate that this programme might be of most interest to those who are at junior to mid-level of their careers in the funds industry already. We want to ensure that we can enhance these professionals' knowledge in an area where they may already have specific niche knowledge of a certain area, but need a broader, interesting knowledge of the funds industry at large.
There is a clear need for this programme to ensure the staff are upskilled to support financial services in the region. They understand that employers want to develop their employees' technical skills as well as their general management and leadership capabilities. Here at BNY Mellon, we are delighted to assist in developing certain modules and are actively encouraging our employees to enrol in the programme.
It's great to see that MTU and WIT have listened to what the industry wants and need, a practical, varied and dynamic masters that individuals performing full-time roles in the industry can undertake. It's also of great benefit to AD and other service providers that the students partake in work-based projects at the end of their Masters, giving us an opportunity to collaborate on topics that are of interest to the industry.
The programme will be delivered by experienced lecturers and also with adjunct faculty experts from the funds industry. This programme has a practical focus and will consist of continuous assessments and group work to promote peer-to-peer learning.
This programme is substantially funded by the government, and therefore any participants will only need to pay a nominal fee to enrol. We are calling on learners to invest in their futures and better their knowledge in this area. For those who are interested in this MBuzz and Investment Fund Administration, please visit fundsacademy.ie. We'd be delighted to hear from you.
Great, and as I said, all details for that are on fundsacademy.ie. Moving swiftly along, just before we move on to the next panel, just to recognise that we've been joined by Minister of State Responsibility for Financial Services, Credit Unions and Insurance, Sean Fleming TD. Minister, you're very, very welcome, and we'll get to hear from him shortly. The next panel is success in funds. It's going to be similar to the last one. I'll just introduce the moderator, who's David Bennett, Associate Partner for EY here in Cork and heads up their financial services practice in the city. And I'll allow David to introduce his panelists. So over to you, David.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final panel, which is success in funds. And what we're going to do is we're going to speak about that in the context of ESG and ILP. As Alan mentioned, my name is David Bennett and I'm an Associate Partner with EY and I lead our Financial Services Office here in Cork. I'm joined by David Brosnan, Managing Director at Clearstream, Yvonne, Head of Fund Accounting at Apex, Liam Collins, Partner at Matheson in the investment management space, and Nick Howard, Strategic Consultant and Founder at Amarenco. Before we kick into it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with 2 years ago, we established our Financial Services Office here in Cork. And one of the key attractions, we were well supported by the Financial Services Forum and OWN, but one of the key attractions was talent. And when I reflect on what's gone on in Cork, 2,500 people employed in this fund sector, a real strong infrastructure supported by UCC and MTU, and of course the Financial Services Forum. I have no doubt that the success that Cork has been on in the fund space will not only continue, but will accelerate. One of those great success stories is Clearstream. So David, you might just kick us off by telling us a little bit about the success of Clearstream they've had and what the plan for the future in Cork is.
Yeah, I guess the success for us has really been able to get people to believe in what Cork can bring. So we were acquired by Clearstream Deutsche Börse, going back now almost 8 years ago. Yeah. And they've been able to come in and see that what Cork can bring to the table. It's Deutsche Börse is focused on bringing trust and stability into the financial market, and we're focused. It's global in its reach. So from a Cork perspective, we're competing in a global dynamic and being able to get in our customers and our clients, but also within the different regions within Clearstream and Deutsche Börse. What we've been able to show is that we can get talent. We can bring a broad range of talent to the market. And you look at, I think COVID was a perfect example of what we're not able to see, but we can adapt to easily and adjust. And I think at times, and we talk about confidence and acknowledging the strength and abilities of what we've done, I think from an Ireland perspective, from a Cork perspective, we've been able to continue to adjust at all times in being able to keep that strength, that trust, that stability in the market. And I think we do deserve to take a bow at times, at how well we've managed through all of this transition, being able to leave the office, come back into the office, recruit talent, deal with it from a technology perspective, continue to onboard new talent, making sure that interns, again, that are coming in from MTU, from UCC continue to happen. And I think that's where, that Clearstream and Deutsche Börse are able to see from a Cork perspective that they don't have to worry about it. It will happen, it will be delivered, and it doesn't matter, again, whether it's in the front, middle, back office, from an IT perspective, it'll be, we can go out and get those talents and make sure that no matter what the world will throw at us, we'll be able to, to adjust to those challenges.
I mean, and it's very interesting when you reflect on the talent piece there, because something Deirdre mentioned was about that syntax between talent and, of course, ESG. We know there's going to be significant flows into ESG. But ESG is very important, not from just an investment perspective, but really from a talent perspective. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what Clearstream are doing and what they focus on in this ESG space?
It's everything. I was at a conference there, let's say, a month ago in Zurich, and we were talking about, one of the presenters talked about, we can, take 2 minutes less in the shower, maybe fly, take one less flight, make sure you take the train instead of the car. But one of the big messages was, and where, again, the youth are going to be, is invest into ESG funds. It's going to be 27 times more powerful than anything you can do on those other areas. And people are going to be looking into that. From a Deutsche Börse perspective, we've committed to that we will be carbon neutral by 2025. From a Deutsche Börse perspective, again, they went out and purchased ISS ESG as one of the global leaders in data from the ESG side. So more and more do we see that, the oil of today is gone. What will be the oil of tomorrow will be on the ESG side. And how are we going to position ourselves and be ready to be able to get into that space? So from a local perspective though, again, us moving into the city centre, being close to the bus route, being close to the trains, being close to the airport, being close to the universities, it's us being able to provide a little bit more of, can we use the public transport, can we use the public infrastructure? We've been, our Aramark, our catering facility, have been, finished runner-up there, and again, in being carbon neutral from a local perspective. So we're trying to do as much as we can at a local perspective, but also then at a global perspective, then the company are really playing their part, and we believe that attracting talent are looking at that as well. So if we want to get talent, we want to retain talent, we've got to be hitting each one of these different niche areas.
I mean, it's very impressive just to hear about the micro level, as opposed to, we all think about this in the macro level and what we're doing, but just from a real micro level, I think that's where we can all make a real impact. Nick, if I might turn to yourself, when I look at the journey Amarenco have been on and the success you guys have had, we know there's going to be significant flows into the ESG, and of course you're very prominent in that E within the ESG, the environmental space. Perhaps you can talk to us a little bit about what investors are looking for and how you think you've been successful.
Thanks, David. And maybe before anything else, I'll just emulate Owen here in saying I'm off the sub bench for John Mullins, my fellow co-founder and executive chairman of Amarenco. So I'll do my best to fill his ample space that he has. We've raised a significant amount of capital, and quite perversely, actually, a large amount of equity capital back in 2020, right in the midst of COVID, 165 million of new capital from Amarenco. And it was from two institutional investors, our first two institutional investors who are part of Credit Agricole Group and a fund group called TK Howell. And ESG was absolutely fundamental in their thinking. They are absolutely focused on sustainability, on supporting the transition to low carbon economies through energy infrastructure, which is what we do. So it was a very big factor. And whilst Amarenco is self-evidently in the E part of ESG by what we do, we do solar energy in some markets actually now without subsidy. But we go beyond just that basic objective. We look to partner with agribusiness. We look to not displace agribusiness. So we have, in fact, we became, about 3 years ago, we became the leading rooftop player in France for solar, which was astonishing for an Irish company, against the likes of Total and Neoen and so forth. Total we now partner with, actually. But that was partly because we looked at producing solar on agribusiness structures, built barns predominantly. And the economics of the solar actually work to an extent that then gives the farmer new infrastructure for himself over a 20 to 25 year time period. So that's hugely important. A lot of the antipathy towards some renewables is that it displaces. It either displaces businesses or it's offensive. Wind has a big issue with its acceptability in small communities, and we've worked quite hard in terms of community funding and getting community buy-in as well. And that's all was central actually in the attracting interest from the likes of Tikehau and the Credit Agricole Group.
And I know you won't mind me saying, but it's been an incredible fundraising journey. I think you're up in the realms of 700 million raised. So, but what we're seeing now is, by 2025, 1/3 of global assets to be in this ESG space. 50 trillion. We saw that Mark Carney, the ex-Bank of England governor, now is leading a consortium of companies worth 128 trillion who've signed up to the pledge. So, I mean, in your role, where do you think the future of those and it's an incredible amount of money. So, is there sufficient places for all this capital to flow?
Well, that's the issue. I think that there's a surplus. Capital has been chasing assets that with ever increasing competitiveness, and the pricing that we've seen as a result of that has reached historical lows. We've never seen capital priced so cheaply, partly because of intervention post crash. There's no shortage of capital, and actually, in terms of what we do, there's no shortage of energy either. The sun produces enough energy in 1 hour to equate to what the globe uses in a year. So energy is in abundance. The issues that we have is how we transform to use it. How do we harness it? How do we distribute it? How does it get used? And I think that capital, the Mark Carney Fund is astonishing, 130 trillion. I mean, that's 8.5 times the EU GDP. It's absolutely eye-watering. And interestingly, I think wind and solar and biomass have now got to a point where they're actually competing in many markets without any subsidy. We're doing a number of sizable deals in Iberia, and we're actually contracting commercially with bilateral off-takers. We have no subsidies at all, and it's cheaper than the marginal new power generation that can come onto the grid from conventional fossil fuels. So that's a game changer. There are still issues there. We can't have 100% on our grids of intermittent renewable energy. There needs to be some sort of balancing, and there's a challenge in terms of storage. There's a challenge in terms of grid. You may have heard about the smart grid. There's a lot of initiatives that are being taken to try and match supply with demand. And those are the areas which need a funding focus, I think. And also in terms of researching those technologies, supporting the nascent technologies. And then I think fundamentally we need to have a different pricing mechanism. We've had the carbon market, which was introduced a few decades ago. It failed. It failed because it was a cap and trade system, and it failed because there was too much put into the market in terms of credits, free credits, to try and avoid too much disruption to established businesses, and the carbon price plummeted down to almost zero. What we need is a mechanism for pricing nature, and it's not just about energy, it's about how we use the environment. And there should be some mechanism, I think, for doing that. So it might be forestry exploitation or fishing, and a hypothecation of that into preserving what's left, incentivizing people like the Brazilians, people like the Indonesians, to leave in place what they have. And that's a really big challenge, to get something done on that is a really big challenge. I think something
that's going to be really important too in that space, though, and Liam, you might just talk briefly on SFDR. We've talked about the regulations. These are coming on, they're on stream now. We're going to see more and more of this come into the reporting of companies. And I think it's vital, because when we think about the amount of capital that's floating around out there and that really is being driven into ESG, I think it's very, very important that we have regulatory convergence, that we have, we have it across the industry. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going on from the EU perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's the real hot topic at the moment between SFDR and taxonomy. Implementation date for taxonomy level 1 by the end of this year. And so I think we're still seeing firms grappling with the detail of it. We're waiting on final technical criteria to be published. But I think what really managers and firms aren't going to have a choice but to move with SFDR. Things will follow investor demand, and aligned with what people want within their own organizations. They have to recognize where the money is going to go and what investors want. And so we're certainly seeing that, managers are adapting their funds, they're upgrading funds to become Article 8 or Article 9 under SFDR. They're looking at their strategies what they need to leave behind, what they need to move on to. So it's certainly a kind of a very dynamic area. And I think while it's been the hot topic, I would say, for this year, it's certainly one that's going to be very much on the radar and upfront and prominent for the next couple of years.
Absolutely, and perhaps even switching tact slightly now to move on to the ILP space. I remember when we sat down for that last network or social event I was at was back in 2019 when we moved down to Cork, and I had a number of you guys at this where I hosted a dinner inside, and you spoke about the work you've been doing with Irish funds and the work on the ILP, and we now of course have this amended investment structure, and it's in a time when it's going to be really crucial. We're seeing a lot of private capital, a lot of private equity funds launching. Do you think we now have a vehicle, and perhaps you could talk a little bit about that, that's capable of competing with the traditional domiciles, the Luxembourg or the Caymans in this private equity space?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm convinced that we do. So it was great to get the enhanced ILP legislation over the line at the end of last year, and I think it was certainly something that was worth waiting for. So Irish funds would have recognised after the introduction of the ICAV in 2015 that gave us the tailor-made corporate vehicle. Irish funds then moved on to identifying that really within the private equity space, the Irish funds industry wasn't a prominent player relative to the very significant parts that we play in the other strategies. And so there was recognition that the limited partnership is the go-to vehicle. It's the vehicle of choice for private equity, private credit, infrastructure, venture capital funds. And we had our 1994 product, but for a variety of reasons it wasn't working. And there was a recognition that we needed to modernise and update the legislation. And so, one of the main words I think that we've heard today is collaboration. And through collaboration then between Irish funds and the department, we were able to really get what I'd say is best in breed legislation. So we were able to look at what the common features are of some of the other leading jurisdictions, and to pick and choose really what we needed to carry across that would make it an attractive vehicle for managers looking to do things in Ireland. Because we had seen that in a lot of cases there were managers who they were already successfully operating in Ireland using other vehicles, but needed the limited partnership for the types of strategies they wanted and the investors they wanted to attract, wanted to have the EU passport that comes with an Irish regulated fund. But they loved doing business in Ireland, and their preference was to stay here, but they didn't have the limited partnership structure. And with the enhancements that we've been able to make and bringing across those kind of key features, I think it means that we're very much open for business and ready to go. And I think there's a real enthusiasm in the industry. We have the expertise in terms of the providers. We've talked about it here, the phenomenal kind of level of professionalism and kind of service culture that's here, down here in Cork. And so I think we're really we're in a great position to kind of build on that now.
And I think timing is key. When you look at what's going to go on in this market, it's 4.3 trillion globally, but by 2025 that's going to sit comfortably above 9 billion, so or 9 trillion. So an amazing opportunity for Ireland. And in Matson, you'd often be the first port of call for managers looking to set up in this domicile. What do you think is key to being successfully continuing, I suppose, to successfully attract as a domicile to Ireland?
Yeah, I think there's a number of features. I think one would be we have the vehicle, and the central bank have updated their guidance and updated their Q&A so that we now have within that a number of the key kind of structural features that you need in these funds focused on private equity, venture capital, real assets. So things like capital accounting, excuse and exclude provisions, stage investing, these carried interest. So these are kind of fundamentals that they expect to see, and we can now provide for that. They also want speed to market, and obviously our Quafe vehicle, it's a 24-hour approval process. They want certainty around their product. So in conversations we've had with a number of managers, they really like the fact that the tax transparency of the ILP and the eighth status of it is inbuilt into the legislation, because there are jurisdictions where you're relying on tax rulings or you're relying on legal opinions, and I think certainty is key for that. And then I think a lot of it comes down as well to the service providers. They look at Ireland, they see English speaking, they see this kind of solutions driven, commercially focused kind of Anglo-Saxon work ethic. They see the very deep pool of talent we have here. There's over 17,000 in total in Ireland working in the funds industry. And so I think they see that there's people here in Ireland, there's organisations with the expertise that they can partner with. And, you know, we see it in the room today, and with our clients, it's like we're very focused in Ireland on building the relationships. It's not just about getting the job done. It's about making sure that it's done in a manner that everyone is happy with it. No one's leaving the table with a bad taste. Everyone's happy with how it's done, and they're eager to continue with the next project. So I think we're very well positioned, and certainly we're talking to managers on a weekly basis about the ILP, and there's a great buzz about it, and hopefully with things opening up, there'll be more of an opportunity for us to go out and beat the drum.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think when you mentioned the successful organisations, and you know, I spoke about this fantastic infrastructure we have, when I look at what's gone on in Apex, I mean, this incredible acquisition journey that you've been on over the last period. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, David. Apex Group as a whole has transformed dramatically over, in particular, the last 4 to 5 years. I started with Apex Fund Services Ireland here in Cork just over 11 years ago, and you know, to see the transformation that has happened over the last 4 to 5 years is, you know, it's very exciting to be part of that journey and still ongoing part of the journey. I think across the group there has been, in the last 4 to 5 years, 25 to 30 acquisitions, not all touching Ireland directly, but indirectly in a lot of ways. But you know, in Ireland in particular, with the DB, Mainstream, Fundrock acquisitions that have enhanced the Apex offering quite significantly. Peter Hughes, our CEO, is in Ireland this week, and he has been speaking with the teams, you know, locally and through the acquisitions, the teams coming in through the acquisitions. And, you know, just speaking about plans for the future and, you know, updates and progress reports, which has been very well received. And, you know, I suppose Peter has been very supportive of the Cork market in particular. You know, Cork is one of the longest serving offices across the group. And, you know, obviously with now the Limerick office being added to our Fundrock acquisition, you know, there's going to be, you know, we do expect, you know, quite an aggressive headcount increase, you know, in the Munster region. And, you know, obviously, you know, what's next? You know, there's a few things, you know, going on, I suspect, in Peter's, you know, pipeline at the moment. But, you know, ones in the near future, if they do come through and if the deals do close, you know, Apex Group across the globe will be looking at a staffing, you know, a staff of about 8,000, I think. And within Ireland, coming up to 800 or 500 staff, you know, between our Cork and Dublin, you know, Sligo, Limerick offices. So, you know, the expansion is exciting, and it's very exciting to see where Apex Fund Services Ireland goes, and in particular in the Munster region.
And it's fantastic to see the regional footprint as well that you guys have. When you spoke about that expansion too, and I know I've been following this acquisition journey you guys have been on, but I mentioned that the private equity, you know, we're expecting such an influx of private equity capital into Ireland, and you know, you guys have really climbed the ranks in the alternatives space. So how are you guys positioning yourselves for success in the PE space, and I suppose specifically with regard to the ILP?
Yeah, exactly. So the ILP, you know, that has been you know, identified as a key growth area for Apex. In particular, I think through our acquisitions, you know, we've now got the experience both from a people perspective and also from a technology perspective, you know, in order to, for example, in like the likes of Guernsey, Luxembourg, Jersey, but also in Ireland as well, through our Cork and Dublin offices, we have dedicated PE teams ready to go. And, you know, as you were touching on, we have the experience, you know, in order to take advantage of the ILP. So, you know, I think how the industry needs to move forward. Like Apex, obviously, we're primed and ready with the experience, but I think the industry as a whole, and I think a lot of people have touched on this today, is that, you know, we do need to all work together. We have the panels, the forums, while this ILP is in its relatively early stage, you know, to make sure that the main ambition here is that the initial client experience is a positive one, because that'll obviously do all our individual businesses, you know, will benefit from that in the longer term if we all kind of come together, work together, get this product right.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is right and the experience is positive, as I said, you know, it'll benefit us all, I think, in the longer term.
And you know, I think that's probably a great point to wrap up on, Pat. I read some of your articles where you spoke about the opportunities really as a result of this ILP and the number of jobs we can create. And I think Cork, you know, is in this great space to really benefit from that, with a really strong infrastructure, really strong business community. So David, Yvonne, Liam and Nick, thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Alan.
Cheers, Dave, and top marks. You'd be carrying by a minute in terms of shaving me back some further time. Moving swiftly along, and to a very strong supporter over going back 10, 12 years to the industry here in Cork, Mr. Pat Lardner, Chief Executive Officer of Irish Funds, who has been a huge supporter of the industry in Cork, as I say. I remember him being down at an event here 2012, 2013, and always makes an effort to support us wherever he can. And we're absolutely delighted that he's made the journey here today. And again, as I've said about Deirdre O'Connor, it's a testament to what we're doing here that Pat has made the journey down. Early this morning, I may add, after his daughter's Deb's last night, he stayed at home last night to presumably make sure she got home. But he left the house very, very early this morning. So we're delighted to have him here, Mr. Pat Lardner, CEO of Irish Funds.
I can confirm that shortly before I left, she arrived. So thanks very much for the introduction and just for the opportunity to be here. There's been a lot said over the course of the last couple of hours, but the reason why you're drawn to an audience like this is because there's passion, because there's purpose, because there's consistency, because there's determination. And it's not only the quality, but it's actually the persistence of the message and the way that it's delivered is one of the reasons why you see the type of success that's represented here. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak. Thank you to Conor, to Catherine, the Chamber team, the Cork Financial Services Forum, and indeed, you know, the very visible presence of Minister Fleming, of Minister McGrath, is really a testament to the importance of that stakeholder partnership that exists with government at a local, at a regional and a national level. For those of you that are less familiar with what we do, we in Irish Funds, we're the voice of the funds and asset management industry. We represent over 150 member firms. And what the industry tries to do is it brings together a series of solutions, a series of expertises that deliver investment solutions and investment services to investors all over the world. I've left, not in every desk, and I know with restrictions people may want to bring them away, a piece of thought leadership that we've done about Ireland's role as part of the European Union solution to the savings problem and to the policy transitions that are required around pandemic recovery, ESG. And I think it's been said earlier on, we have a fundamental role as one of the key gateways to bring capital, to bring skill, to bring expertise into the European Union and beyond. And that's the way that we will have to think and should think, particularly in a post-Brexit environment. I'm very proud as well that when I look down through the agenda and the programme, we have 9 different member firms of ours involved today. And I think that just shows the breadth as well of involvement right across the region. Now, all of the speakers, and it's actually when you've written some notes to say a few words, what you're actually ticking off as you go through is all the things that other people now have said that you were going to say, which is actually quite comforting because it means there's a great consistency. So what I might do in thinking about the regional outlook is to focus just for a minute or two on the facts that we know, and then possibly to look a little bit forward. So factually, and all of the numbers I'm talking about here are based on economic impact assessments that we did firstly at the end of 2018 and a second one based on data at the end of 2020. So it's actually a short window of 2 years. But that short window of 2 years has shown some really dramatic and fundamental change. So the first thing is that we know overall employment across the industry, which directly employs 17,000 people and indirectly employs an additional 17,000, has increased by almost 7.9% over the course of those 2 years. But importantly, when we look at the proportion of those employees that are located outside of Dublin, back at the end of 18 to now, it's actually shifted from just below 28% at the end of 2018 to over 38%. That's in 2 years. That's very, very substantial. We know, using the Central Statistics Office regional characterizations, that the Southwest region represents 1,500 direct jobs. Now, I have to say, because Alan is here, the Southeast also has a lot of jobs as well, so just not to give our Wexford cousins their due. So that actually means that 9% of employment in our industry directly is in the Southwest region. When you add out Southeast, that comes up to 17%. So we're looking at almost 1 in 5 of all people employed in this industry actually being located in the two main southern regions. That leaves out the Midwest, it leaves out the Midlands, it leaves out the Mideast. So what you have, and again, when Yvonne was talking earlier on, we have a company talked about 5 different locations that they've got offices in. So we have a national industry. The other thing that was noticeable over the course of the last 2 years is the significant growth in the proportion of employment that is represented in the asset manager, investment management company cohort. So now, today, about 21% of all employees across our industry work for an investment manager, a fund manager, or a management company. That represents both a reaction and a response to Brexit, a response to regulatory requirements, but also a significant shifting in terms of where we sit on the value chain. And it opens up more opportunities as well. And it's fair to say as well that the number of regionally based offices maintained by industry players jumped by 40% from the end of 18 to the end of 20. So, regionalisation works. And actually, if there was ever a case study for how competency, skill and expertise can be developed at regional level to enhance national competitiveness, this is the example of it. And I think what you have in this room and everything that extends beyond the room is a really good example of it. The second thing that we saw when we looked at the data between the two dates was what I call a post-establishment flourish. Now, that's not a technical term, but what it really reflects is firms that come in and they establish with reasonably modest presences, they put in really good management teams, and what those management teams want to do is to develop at different lines of activity. They want to generate income. They want to work more broadly with their group colleagues, and they start in-selling within their own larger groups. All of that is happening. And the way that we know that our one measure for that is the most significant change in terms of the size of firms was the increase in the number of firms that employ between 10 and 50 people. So that you move from a couple of boots on the ground to it broadening out. So 16 firms more were in that 10 to 50 firm category, about 10% of the population of firms at the end of 20 than was there at the end of 2018. So that also means, because you've got firms of different sizes, creating different environments with different competencies, going back to the talent and the opportunity and the competition that we have with lots of other industries for talent, we're now providing lots of different experiences for people. Really, really important. So the facts, in short, speak to growth is happening, it's spreading regionally, and it means that we've got multiple hubs. That's exactly what our national strategy has been, will be, and should continue to be going forward. The tapestry of firms it's creating is really powerful in terms of both an offering and developmentally and networking and collaboration. And the sector, and remember, the funds and asset management sector is the largest individual subsector of international financial services in this country. So it has scale. Globally, we look after 6% of every mutual fund asset in the world. We represent 0.06% of the world's population. We represent 18% of all European assets. So we have scale, we absolutely have the expertise, has been demonstrated more amply than I can put in words by everything you've heard this morning. And we have a strong historic reputation. So now briefly, I might just look forward. So if we talk about the outlook for the Southwest region, for the cluster, for the hub, it's partly linked to the national story, but it also needs to differentiate itself from the national story. And I'll touch on each of these just briefly. So the reputation for the last 30 years and the national story is one that's built on a differentiated service offering that's focused on words used were delivery, determination, with personality because it's relationship-based, high standards of compliance and a real care for end investors. We operate in regulated space. Everybody wants to make sure that the people's money that we are looking after is looked after well. It's also been an environment where it's easy to understand in terms of what the requirements are, what the timelines are, has the right range of solutions or structures, and it's efficient in the way that it operates. And also, we've grown because we've had a preparedness not always to be the first in every case, but to be early when there are changes, when there are new developments. And one only has to look at, for example, the exchange-traded funds business, where over 60% of every exchange-traded fund established in Europe is established here. One of the reasons is because we were early. So you can wrap all of that up is that the customer or the client experience is, I want to come back for more. So how do we create that feeling, that sensation of wanting to come back for more? I think that we retain a lot of it. I think it's been pointed out in different parts of the panels today. There's a lot more together that we can and must do because the world is changing very rapidly. So now let's talk about the differentiation of this region. So we all know the last 18 months has changed everybody's perspective, and different people have talked about it in different ways, no doubt in coffee discussions both before and after it's coming up. So the lens that people are looking at is changing, and what I mean by that is where I want to live becomes very, very important. And because the where I want to live becomes important, it allows differentiation based on location and the experience in location. The range of possibilities about how service, about how expertise is delivered has expanded just monumentally. And that's actually really important because it then means how I provide my expertise, how I work with a firm, how I grow as an individual can be accommodated in less constrained and much more open ways. And we were talked about the talent pool. Digitalization, the end user experience, all of those things that can be enabled by technology have the potential to reduce some of the just geographical limitations we have of remoteness from certain marketplaces if we use technology as a way to bridge some of those gaps. And I would say we're doing, actually over the course of the next couple of months, Fast Track into Technology are doing a technology skills audit of our industry, looking at not only disciplines in technology that we might have and or need, but the transversal skills that go with it. And that's part of a broader approach that we talked about here. And just I think the stuff that's going on at the universities is outstanding. So, and I think there's more conversations we should have around that as well. So the last point is, in a relative sense, there is still a smallness, a localness that exists here. That creates nimbleness. And if we take that, Ireland as a small place should be nimble. Cork as a part of Ireland should be more nimble. So how do you use that nimbleness in terms of moving forward? And, I would say a couple of things. One, I would encourage people to think about what our role is within the European Union. We are now very significant players. And I think to the point that was made earlier on, it was bring it on. Go big or go home is a comment that I know Mr. Motherway likes to use. And I think to Deirdre's point about confidence, there should be a high level of conviction and confidence that there is nothing that this group of people cannot achieve if we all row together and row as strongly as we have done. So again, I'd like to commend the Chamber, I'd like to commend the Forum, I'd like to commend all of you to continue to drive this model, which I think is a really strong model of both regional development, but that is significantly adding to national competitiveness as well. Thank you very much and good morning.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Pat. And on behalf of the Chamber and the Financial Services Forum, again, thank you for making the trip down today. And one of the other hats that I wear on in the day job is to chair the Irish Funds Events and Conference Working Group. And their first in-person event is actually next week in London with over 700 registered, and we wish you well with that event, and I know there's probably a number of people in this room who will attend that as well, so thanks again. Last but by no means least, and again testament to what we're trying to do here, we're delighted to have him here today. The Minister State with responsibility for financial services, credit unions and insurance, and a proud Laois man, I'm sure. Mr. Sean Fleming, TD, I welcome you to the stage to address us for the closing remarks.
Good morning all, and first of all I want to thank Alan and everybody here this morning for what has been a very excellent showcase of the great work that is taking place here in the Southwest region. It's an indicative of how important the region is. I've had only about 2 outings out of the department in the last month, and both of them are here in Cork. So you have strong drawing power, and it's all got to do with regionalisation, because it's a key element of our Ireland for Finance strategy, the issue of regionalisation. And Pat has given a good outline on how that is actually working at the moment. As I mentioned, I was delighted to help Alter Domus recently with the opening of their new offices, which is just the latest in a series of expansions in the cluster here in the region, and it does show the energy and drive and the commitment of the executives of all involved. This is exactly the kind of outcome the Department of Finance is looking for in the delivery of our Ireland for Finance strategy. What at its core, it aims to protect and grow the number of people working in greenfield and digital financial services and increase the number of people of diverse backgrounds working in the regions. So we're very keen in terms of gender balance and diversity in its widest sense as part of our strategy, and also the whole question of regionalisation. I know the success of the Southwest region is the work of many hands, and is producing this showcase event. You have captured the enthusiasm and dedication that is apparent here. I do want to acknowledge the role of our state agencies, IDA and Enterprise Ireland, the educational providers, UCC, and now especially Munster Technological University, the growing cluster of professional service providers, and the financial service firms that are the engine of the cluster here in this region. I would like to thank Conor and Catherine from the Forum and the Chamber for organising today, and I want to pass on my thanks on behalf of the team in the Department of Finance and for the support that all your members give consistently to us in developing our Ireland for Finance strategy. I also want to acknowledge the members of the Industry Advisory Committee, which I meet regularly. They've all been Zoom meetings since I came into office, so I look forward to an in-person meeting as soon as it is safe to do so. And a number of those people who participated here today: Deirdre Connor, who is very recently on our international member; Barry O'Connell, who represents the Chartered Accountants, of which I'm one myself; okay, Ruth McCarthy, who is want to congratulate her on her appointment to the advisory panel of the European Central Bank, which will work on the investigation of the digital euro. The work on the digital currency is just one element of the way technology is transforming the financial services sector and directing the way regional clusters will develop into the future. Under our 2021 action plan, the Department of Finance has created a new FinTech steering group, and that has been very important from our point of view. And Minister Donoghue and myself sat down and we felt we need to establish a FinTech steering group at department level in the Department of Finance, and that has recently been established and will go from strength to strength in the coming year. The support of everybody here today is greatly appreciated. And part of the work we're looking to achieve as a whole of government strategy to partner with the private sector in pursuit of our common objective to create a competitive advantage that delivers value for financial services firms in the region. We're currently finalising our Ireland for Finance Action Plan 2022, and take this work to the next level. We've had a lot of submissions and they're all being examined carefully. And as I said, FinTech will be very important in that area, as is all the important work taking place in Glasgow at the COP26 talks. Ireland is taking an active role in the COP talks this week, as can be seen from the new Climate Action Plan launched yesterday. Private finance must play a key part in meeting our investment needs in the financial services to deliver on this action plan. And in fact, it was listed today, and a lot of the commentary is a lot of it will come from the private sector, and it shouldn't all come from the government. Lead must come from government, serious investment must come from government, but it must come from the people as well. And when you're dealing with that, a lot of the finance will come from the finance sector, and that's why it's very pleased to hear the talk about ESG funding and everything like that during the panel discussion. We must also ensure that Ireland provides the best-in-class environment in which sustainable finance can grow and thrive, and further enhance its facilitation of the essential investments required to make our low-carbon transition. It won't be easy, but it is achievable. And I just say to the people who say you're never going to get to the electric car numbers, I remember last March, April, when we said we would get 60% of the people vaccinated, and people looked at the figures, April, May, June, you'll never get 50%. But it builds momentum, and everything builds momentum. You won't reach it in the first month or the first year, but once the momentum builds, you will get there by the end of the period. So we'll be looking to build on the success of recent investments, such as Inish Offshore Wind Project, which is part of the Temporis here in Cork and has received investment from the National Treasury Management Agency and the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund. So as I was sitting there, just before I conclude, I want to particularly take up and note the remarks of Deirdre Connor of BlackRock when she mentioned about the role of the regulator. There was quite a discussion about the investment limited partnership, and only small companies have come through the regulatory process to date. And I take the points that people want a clear framework and a clear process in relation to that, and we're taking fully on board what has actually been said here today. I have a particular interest in that legislation, because when I came into the ministry last autumn, it was the first thing on my desk, and took about 6 or 7 sessions to get it through the Dáil and the Seanad. Very pleased to get it through. So I'm really hoping that this really takes off in the coming year. And I also want to acknowledge the comments that it is good legislation and that the Central Bank is working on guidelines on this area. So in conclusion, I want to thank you all once again. It is a great pleasure to be able to meet you in person for the first time. I've met some of you before on various calls and meetings, and I look forward to working with you all in the further development of this vibrant cluster here in the Southwest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for taking the time to join us here today. It is very much appreciated, and I say it's a well-worn track down from Laois to Cork at this stage. So thank you. Just bear with me a couple of more minutes. That does conclude proceedings. Just in terms of a few thank yous, just like to thank again the working group, my fellow members of the working group who pulled all this together diligently over the summer on fortnightly calls to try and put together an agenda that hopefully people would find interesting and relevant and impactful, and I'd like to think that we have achieved that. Would also like to thank the various sponsors and stakeholders, the lead one obviously being Cork Chamber, but in conjunction with the IDA, the Enterprise Ireland, UCC, MTU and Grant Thornton, to thank you for all of those. And last but by no means least, in a surprise addition to proceedings, I suppose, individual who has probably in conjunction with Owen and probably more than Owen driven the Financial Services Forum agenda and kept manners on all of us, and there are nearly 30 of us, kept manners on all of us over the last number of years is Catherine Fitzpatrick within Cork Chamber. And Catherine is moving on from Cork Chamber, and we felt we couldn't let the occasion of today pass without recognising it in some way. So I might ask Owen just to say a few words and to make a presentation to Catherine to conclude proceedings.
When I heard Catherine was leaving, I was gutted. And the reason is very simple. When I look back on all of the work that we have done, and when I look back at my own career, you were actually my longest colleague, right? So maybe you're just escaping me. But 14 years of collaborative work has led to what we have this morning, right? And there's so much Catherine has done, and a lot of it extremely silent, but always with passion. And I'm reminded of the words of Maya Angelou, who said, you know, people will forget what it is you did, and people will forget what it is you said, but they will never forget how they made you feel. And Catherine, your passion for this project is beyond words. So the best of luck to you and Michaeli and Daniel and Alessio in your new role, but Cork and financial services in the Southwest is a better place because of you. We do have two gifts. One is a bunch of flowers, which will irradiate the room for a while, but we also have a beautiful piece of art that Ger sourced, which I think will hopefully adorn your new desk in whatever you do, and we'd like to present those now.
So that really is it. Once again, there's no surprise presentations for anybody else. Thank you again, everybody. You know, it's been 3 years since we were here at a similar event, and as Owen said, the coming to fruition of this event has been a while. But I think hopefully everybody has found it worthwhile. Sorry, we've run a little bit over, but I think that the quality of the content, particularly the quality of the various keynotes we've had, including the two ministers and Pat and Deirdre from BlackRock, I think, again, I know I'm repeating myself, is testament to what we're trying to achieve here. So thank you all again. I wish you all a very pleasant rest of your day, a very good weekend, and hopefully see some of you at the Irish Funds event in London next week. Thank you very, very much.